Hello again. I want to go from Brazil, where you saw some effects of partially urbanized areas, to a place in Africa. Liberia is the country we're going to look at. And this film, we're only going to watch just a couple minutes of it, but this film was made by an organization called gapminder.org. That's how you can find it, gapminder.org. Wonderful place for geography and social statistics, policy statistics, all kinds of social justice issues. You should probably bookmark it, gapminder.org, and use it as a very quick reference for any of your classes moving forward. It's got some great interactive charts and graphs that can show you world population increase and decrease and all these different economic factors all over the world. But anyway, this video that we're going to see was made in conjunction with the UN Habitat Program, which calls for urbanization as a cure, so to speak, to poverty, a cure for many of public health issues like those that were listed in that video that we watched about Brazil. These are communicable through a diseased water supply. And so if you have proper infrastructure in your urbanized world, then yes, those things can be controlled or even wiped out almost entirely, so you don't have to worry about being sick from our water supply. And honestly, so many of us won't even use tap water. We buy our water from other locations because we would rather do that. Sorry, my dog is making a cameo. This is Junior. Anyway, and, the thought of drinking out of a public water fountain even before the coronavirus pandemic was probably not, in the scope of our existence. We probably would not put our mouth down toward that public water fountain, and certainly not now with the global pandemic that we are experiencing and living through. But let's look at urbanized environments, and this video was made about 10 years ago, so we're not talking about, 1930s or something like that. We're talking about today, our neighbors across the world, and the way their daily life exists. So there's going to be a couple spots in here where they talk about problems and issues like needing to have a right to stay there. They call it secure tenure, having enough space, durable housing, proper sanitation, those kinds of things. And so you'll see these itemized in the video. Let's watch. So as this gentleman walks through the slum, which is like a makeshift shack, you can see these shacks, they're just makeshift shacks. They're going to show you examples of what durable housing means, what secure tenure means, the devastating effects of the lack of proper water supply. No Junior.
This is somebody's house. The way it has been built is not that good. You can see for yourself.
My house. I sleep there. We are 7. Some are sleeping here.
So this green thing there is the toilet. That's the toilet. There's the kitchen.
We believe that soon or later this will be history for the people living, for the slum dwellers, and for the people who are poor.
So people in these areas in Liberia, the reason that they were pulled to the pull factor was that in an urbanized setting, you're safe. There's police forces, there's places to live, there's opportunities for work. However, sometimes so many people flock to an urban environment unexpectedly. Like in the case of Liberia, there are a lot of civil wars going on in the peripheral and the hinterland around the capital there, and children are being kidnapped and put into guerrilla armies or forced to work in the chocolate trade, for instance, harvesting and that kind of thing. So people are escaping political strife and oppression and just warfare, famine. There's not very many resources for subsistence farming for them, so they're flocking to these cities too quickly. We're not talking about a case in which there are houses that look similar to the way that we think of a house in our U.S. mental scape. In Brazil, it looked like a foreign country, I think, when you looked at that hill. But there aren't even those houses in this particular place. They make houses out of cardboard and sheet metal that blow away in the wind and that wash away in a flood. And he'll show you that next.
The roof, as you can see, is not that well. The water just get inside as if there is no roof.
I think I'm going to mute the rest of it because their accents are so thick that I don't think that the caption, the YouTube caption, is going to be able to write out exactly what they're saying in English. But he's giving you a tour of these makeshift shacks that have cardboard on the walls. You can see all the sunlight coming through, so it's not a stable or a durable home that can stand a hailstorm or a wind or rain. He'll show you an empty lot, I guess we can call it, an empty space where there were walls and people were living, but it was washed away in a flood. And here is the river, their water source that they're standing beside. Let me back it up just one little bit and play that. There's their water source, but as it passes by, look at all of these islands that are not naturally occurring islands. This is man's interaction, human interaction with the environment, dumping waste, dumping garbage into this area, and it just has built islands of garbage. And this garbage, think about what's in your garbage. If you left it out, would it attract animals? And do those animals have parasites? And do those animals have diseases? And do they have to pee, poo, poo, and caca when they get there? And spread those kinds of problems too, and small animals are prey for larger predators, and so all of this kind of stuff is attracted to that area and causes problems for human existence. And so there's their water supply, and look at this huge mountain behind this guy. That's the garbage dump right up against where people have these little shacks. And they didn't build next to a garbage dump. This garbage dump developed because human beings have waste, and this waste can really cause a lot of public health problems. So I think the next part of this video, you are going to see a lady who is a single mom, and please remember that these are dire circumstances that you see her in, but please also remember that not all children are conceived under happy circumstances, right? So she has this baby, she's alone, she has no income, and you're going to see in this hill behind her, she's going to tell you that she did not have secure tenure, which means right to the place where she was. She did not have a lease. She didn't rent anything. And she used to have a shack. This hillside used to be filled with shacks like you saw in that other part of the video. And the landowner wasn't having it anymore and just bulldozed everything. And so she's telling us here in the video that the only thing she has is what she's holding, those clothes and what she's holding. And so they came and just demolished everything with very little notice for her to be able to do anything. So if you are a refugee and you have immigrated with an E from the place of strife and war or whatever reason pushed you from it, and you go into a place where the closest place that you have resources to get, which is your feet walking, then you will take what you get, right? And so this particular area has wealthier homes in it. Look, it's made of mud and rocks and sticks, maybe a piece of wood over a window. And so she's washing clothes for people in order to get pennies a day for a little bit of rice or whatever is available for food. Let's scan forward just a little bit to the next guy. Here is the next slum dweller. Slum is a technical term that the UN Habitat Program uses for places like this that build up around urban centers. So this guy is hauling water from another location so that he'll have clean water for his family. And they had to flee from their rural setting into this urban setting, but there was not enough infrastructure available to provide housing, proper housing or sanitation or jobs for all of the people who flocked there. So he found himself living in these conditions. He's introducing you to his family members now. The baby is sick, he says, and this is what the outside of his house looks like. Let me see, go back really quick. There we go. So, animals around those chickens, and then that stream in between is the same thing that we saw coming out of those houses in Brazil. He's going to take you uphill to the outhouse, and that's the outhouse where people come in public and do this, and it runs down in between the shacks that were built up. So this is a problem with improper urbanization and lack of development. So when we look at developed, developing, and underdeveloped nations, please keep these images in your mind. It's so easy to just read about or have somebody like me talk at you about what development means, what industrialization means, what does urbanization mean, and we get kind of desensitized to the life experience that these folks have, or that throughout history evolved to some of the current expectations for cities and metropolises like New York or Los Angeles, certainly Mumbai. In this video, it talks about that early child death. So we know in demographic transition, one of the things that keeps population numbers down overall is that even though there's a high birth rate, there's also a high death rate. And we're not talking about like 70-year-old people dying from old age. We're talking about that little baby that you saw the mother holding. He died because of a lack of infrastructure, a lack of clean water resources. And this is so common. The death rates are so common when these resources that you and I take for granted. I'll speak for myself only. I take them for granted. I don't need to make that assumption. But look at how many graves are already dug in advance, because this is not an unusual occurrence. And they're tiny graves, did you notice? They're not for a person my size. They're tiny graves for the babies, because that's what keeps the death rate so high. And so the lack of urbanization, lack of infrastructure, these original reasons that you saw enumerated at the beginning of this film, that's why urbanization and proper urbanization is so important. So slum is, basically the lack of those 5 things. If you look at the UN Habitat Program's definition of a slum, it's the lack of durable housing, right to be at the housing, proper space so you have physical and mental well-being, and sanitation, proper clean water and proper sanitation. A lack of those things is a slum, according to the UN Habitat Program. But slums, unfortunately, are part of the urban environment if infrastructure is not there, if there are not proper resources to expand cities and expand resources. Building up certainly could be a way to expand instead of just build out, but it also takes money in these further stages of demographic transition to build these things, because agriculture changed the economic climate to profit-driven, surplus, profit-driven stuff. So now everything costs money instead of the communal lifestyle. And it doesn't seem to be possible, the communal lifestyle doesn't seem to be possible to work in large-scale populations, complex societies, such as we experience today. Thank you for your attention.